The thugs thought the 90-year-old veteran was alone, just an old man with a failing shop and no one left to call. Then he made one phone call, and 500 bikers arrived like thunder, ready to remind the world that some men never stand alone. The wrench hit the concrete floor with a sharp clang that echoed through Miller's auto shop like a warning bell. Frank Miller didn't flinch. At 90 years old, he'd heard worse sounds. Artillery fire in France, the death rattle of dying friends, the hollow thud of caskets being lowered into American soil. A thrown tool barely registered on his scale of threats. I said, "We're done talking, old man." Tyler Raines stood in the doorway, blocking the morning sun. 3 men flanked him, all muscle and bad intentions wrapped in designer jackets that screamed new money and old crimes. "You got 1 week to clear out. This property's been sold." Frank straightened slowly from the engine block he'd been working on, wiping grease from his hands with a red shop rag. His back protested, always did these days, but he stood his full 6 feet. Age had bent him some, sure, but hadn't broken him. "Sold to who?" Frank's voice carried the gravel of decades and cigarettes he'd quit 30 years ago. "I own this building. Been mine since 1955. Tyler smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Not according to the paperwork my boss filed yesterday. Some old tax liens, missed payments. You know how it goes. Cities seizing it for redevelopment." He looked around the shop with barely concealed disgust. "This place is a dump anyway. We're putting up something modern. Clean. Tax liens." Frank repeated the words slowly, tasting the lie. "I've never missed a payment in 70 years. Well, according to the county records. According to county records, I'm also still married to a woman who died in 1998. Frank tossed the rag onto his workbench. "So maybe your paperwork's as fake as your boss's smile." One of Tyler's men, a thick-necked kid with a snake tattoo crawling up his jaw, stepped forward. "You calling us liars?" "I'm calling you what you are." Frank met his eyes without blinking. "Thugs in cheap suits trying to steal from an old man because you think I'm too weak to fight back." Tyler's expression hardened. "Last chance, Grandpa. Walk away. Take whatever's left of your dignity and disappear. Or we make you disappear. And if I don't, then we start breaking things." Tyler nodded to his men. "Starting with you." The shop erupted into chaos. Snake Tattoo grabbed a toolbox and hurled it across the room. Metal tools scattered like shrapnel. Another thug swept his arm across Frank's workbench, sending 50 years of collected parts and memories crashing to the floor. The third kicked over an oil drum, black liquid spreading across the concrete like a toxic tide. Frank moved toward them, but Tyler caught his shoulder and shoved hard. At 90, balance wasn't what it used to be. Frank stumbled backward into a shelf unit. Pain exploded through his spine as he hit the metal frame. He tasted copper, had bitten his tongue, or maybe his lips split when his face scraped the corner. "Stop!" Frank's voice cracked, but not from fear. From rage he hadn't felt in decades. They didn't stop. They destroyed. Systematically, methodically, sending a message louder than any threat. "You're alone. You're old. You're finished." Tyler crouched beside Frank as he slumped against the fallen shelf. "1 week, old man. Be gone, or we'll bury you here." He stood, turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and don't bother calling the cops. Sheriff Reyes? He knows who signs the real paychecks in this town now." The door slammed. Engines roared to life outside. Then silence. Frank sat there for a long moment, breathing hard, blood dripping from his split lip onto his oil-stained shirt. Around him lay the wreckage of his life's work. Broken tools, shattered picture frames, the 1967 Harley-Davidson he'd been restoring for his granddaughter scattered in pieces. His hands shook, not from fear, from fury, and something else, something these young punks couldn't possibly understand. Memory. Frank pulled himself up using the workbench, joints screaming protest. He limped through the debris to his office in the back, a cramped room with a metal desk, a filing cabinet, and a rotary phone that probably belonged in a museum. He opened the bottom desk drawer and pulled out an old leather address book held together with rubber bands and hope. The pages were yellow, the ink faded. He flipped through names and numbers, most of them crossed out. Dead. Moved away. Lost to time. Then he found it. A number he hadn't dialed in 30 years. His fingers shook as he rotated the dial. Once. Twice. 7 times. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. Yeah. The voice was gruff, suspicious. This is Iron Hand. Frank spoke the name he hadn't used since 1995. Tell Marcus I need the wolves. A pause. Then, Jesus Christ. Frank? That really you? It's me, Johnny. And I need the pack. All of them. How many you need? Frank looked at the destruction around him. Thought about Tyler's smug face. Thought about being 90 and alone and pushed into a corner. All of them, he repeated. Every last wolf. The sound started exactly 43 minutes later. A distant rumble, like thunder on a clear day. Frank was still cleaning blood from his face when he heard it, felt it, really, a vibration in his chest that grew steadily louder. Engines. Dozens of them. He walked to the shop's front door and stepped outside. Down Main Street, from both directions, they came. Motorcycles. Hundreds of them. Chrome glinting in the afternoon sun, leather cuts adorned with the same patch. A snarling wolf's head over crossed pistons. The steel wolves. Men who'd grown old, but not soft. Riders who'd scattered across America, but never forgotten their founder. Brothers who'd made a promise decades ago. When Iron Hand calls, the wolves come running. They lined the street, engines rumbling like a pride of mechanical lions. 50 bikes. 100. 200. More still arriving from distant highways, answering a call that transcended time and distance. Tyler's black SUV was still parked across the street. Frank saw movement inside, saw Tyler's face pressed against the window, eyes wide with sudden, terrible understanding. Marcus Preacher Stone, now 72 with a gray beard down to his chest, shut off his bike and walked to Frank. He looked at the blood on Frank's face and the destroyed shop behind him. Who? Was all he asked. Frank pointed across the street. Preacher turned, and 500 bikers turned with him. Tyler's door didn't open. Frank Miller smiled for the first time that day. Welcome home, brothers. Sheriff Tom Reyes was finishing his second cup of coffee when Dispatch crackled to life with a voice he'd never heard so panicked. Sheriff, we've got a situation on Main Street. Multiple reports of, I don't even know how to say this. Hundreds of motorcycles. They're everywhere, blocking the entire downtown. Tom set down his mug carefully, though his hand wanted to slam it. He knew exactly what this was about. He'd seen Tyler Raines and his crew roll into town 3 months ago with their slicked-back hair and their fake smiles and their poisoned promises of economic development. He'd watched them circle Frank Miller's property like vultures. And he'd done nothing. I'm on my way, he said quietly. The drive from the station to Main Street took 4 minutes. Tom could hear the engines 2 blocks away, a collective rumble that made his patrol car's windows vibrate. He turned the corner and his breath caught. 500 motorcycles, maybe more. They lined both sides of Main Street in perfect formation, riders standing beside their bikes in leather cuts that all bore the same patch. The Steel Wolves. Tom recognized that symbol. Every cop in the Southwest knew that symbol, though most thought the club had dissolved decades ago. Apparently not. Tom parked his cruiser at the edge of the gathering and stepped out slowly, hand nowhere near his weapon. That would be suicide and stupidity rolled into one. He was outnumbered 500 to 1, and these weren't kids playing dress-up. These were men who'd ridden together through wars, some literal, some metaphorical, and they'd come for a reason. He spotted Frank immediately. The old man stood in front of his shop, flanked by a gray-bearded giant Tom didn't recognize. Frank's lip was split, blood crusted on his chin. Tom's jaw tightened. Tommy, Frank's voice carried across the sudden silence as engines cut off one by one. Thanks for coming. Tom walked forward, aware of 500 pairs of eyes tracking his every movement. He'd known Frank Miller since he was 8 years old. His own father had been a drunk who used fists more than words. Frank had been the one who taught him how to change oil, how to throw a punch properly, how to be a man worth respecting. When Tom's dad finally wrapped his truck around a tree driving home drunk, Frank had been at the funeral, had helped pay for Tom's first semester at community college. Now Tom wore a badge and Frank wore blood. Mr. Miller, Tom said formally, because this was official now, whether he wanted it to be or not. Want to tell me what happened to your face? Had some visitors this morning. Disagreement about property rights. Frank's tone was casual, but his eyes were steel. They got a little aggressive. Aggressive enough to bring, Tom gestured at the assembled bikers, an army. They're not an army, Tommy. They're family. The gray-bearded man beside Frank spoke up. Sheriff, I'm Marcus Stone. Most folks call me Preacher. These men are members of the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club. We're here to ensure Mr. Miller's safety and protect his legal property rights. Tom studied Preacher. The man's voice was calm, reasonable, but his eyes told a different story, one of violence held in check by will alone. Protect his property rights. That what we're calling it? That's exactly what we're calling it, Preacher said. Unless someone gives us reason to call it something else. Tom turned back to Frank. Can we talk? Just you and me. Frank nodded and they walked to the side of the shop, away from listening ears. Tom kept his voice low. Frank, I know what Tyler Raines is. I know what he's trying to do. But this, he waved at the bikers. This is going to bring attention you don't want. State police. ATF maybe. This could spiral into something nobody can control. Tommy, look at me, Frank's voice softened. Really look at me. I'm 90 years old. I got maybe 5 years left if I'm lucky. That shop is all I have. It's my life's work. It's my legacy. Tyler and whoever he works for want to take it and turn it into some money laundering front. You think I'm going to let that happen without a fight? I don't want you to get hurt. Or killed. I'm already hurt, Frank touched his split lip. And I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. You taught me that. Or I taught you. I can't remember anymore. Tom felt something crack inside his chest. The oath he'd taken when he pinned on the badge, to uphold the law, to keep the peace. And the debt he owed to the man who'd saved him from becoming his father. Sheriff, a voice called out. Tom turned. Tyler Raines stood beside his SUV across the street, phone in hand. I've already called the state police. This is an illegal assembly. You need to disperse these people immediately, or I'll have your badge. Tom looked at Tyler, at his expensive jacket and his cheap threats. Then he looked at Frank, at the blood on his face and the quiet dignity in his spine. He made his choice. Tom walked back to the assembled bikers, raised his voice so everyone could hear. As far as I can see, no laws are being broken here. Public streets. Peaceful assembly. Everyone still has their right to gather. He looked directly at Tyler. No one's threatening anyone. Are they, Mr. Raines? Tyler's face went red. This is outrageous. You can't. I can. And I am. Tom turned back to Frank and Preacher. Keep it peaceful. Keep it legal. The moment anyone crosses that line, I'll have no choice. Understood. Preacher nodded slowly. Understood, Sheriff. Tom started walking back to his cruiser, then paused beside Frank. Dropped his voice to a whisper. For what it's worth, I'm glad you made that call. Frank grabbed his arm. Tommy, this isn't war. It's just family coming home. Tom looked at the assembled wolves. Old men with gray beards and scarred hands, united by something stronger than law or logic. Brotherhood. Yeah, Tom said quietly. I know. He drove away, leaving 500 bikers and one old man standing against the world. And for the first time in 3 months, Tom Reyes felt like he'd done the right thing. Claire Mitchell saw the video on her phone while sitting in a coffee shop 200 miles away in Phoenix. Someone had posted it to Twitter with the caption, Insane biker gang takes over small town, war brewing. The shaky footage showed Main Street in Ashford, her childhood street, packed wall to wall with motorcycles. Men in leather, chrome glinting. And there, standing in the center of it all, was a figure she'd recognize anywhere. Her grandfather. Claire's coffee went cold as she watched the 40-second clip 3 times. Then she grabbed her keys. She arrived just after sunset. The bikers were still there. Claire had expected chaos, fights, maybe police barricades, the National Guard. Instead, she found something stranger, order. The motorcycles were parked in neat rows. Men sat in camping chairs on the sidewalk, eating sandwiches and drinking coffee from thermoses. Someone had set up a portable grill. It smelled like burgers. It looked less like a siege and more like a very weird family reunion. She parked her Honda Civic 3 blocks away, the closest she could get, and walked toward the shop. Men watched her pass, but said nothing. She felt their eyes tracking her, assessing. She wore business casual, slacks, a blouse, heels that clicked against the pavement. She'd come straight from her marketing job. She probably looked like she'd wandered into the wrong dimension. You lost, ma'am. A biker with a gray ponytail and kind eyes blocked her path gently. I'm looking for Frank Miller. He's my... Claire. The voice came from behind her. She turned. A massive man with a beard like Moses stepped forward. Recognition flickered somewhere in her memory. Childhood barbecues. Someone tossing her in the air while she shrieked with laughter. Little Claire Bear? Holy hell, you grew up. Uncle Marcus? The nickname surfaced from a past she'd tried to forget. Preacher. That's right, he pulled her into a hug that smelled like leather and Old Spice. Your grandpa's inside. Been asking about you, actually. Wondered if you'd see the news. Is he okay? The video showed. He's fine. Ornery as ever, Preacher's expression darkened. But someone thought they could push him around. Bad mistake. Claire followed him through the crowd of bikers. They parted like water, and she saw faces she half remembered from childhood. Uncle Johnny with the scar across his eyebrow. Big Mike who used to let her sit on his motorcycle. Danny Whisper, Chun who'd taught her to play poker when she was 7. These men had been her extended family once. Before her mother died. Before the arguments. Before Claire left Ashford swearing she'd never come back. The shop door was open. Inside, Frank sat at his desk, cleaning tools and arranging them with the careful precision of someone rebuilding their world one piece at a time. He looked up when she entered. For a moment, neither spoke. He looked old. That was Claire's first thought. She'd last seen him 4 years ago at Christmas, an awkward, silent dinner that ended with her leaving early. He'd seemed old then too, but this was different. He looked fragile, breakable. The blood crusted on his lip made her stomach twist. Claire, he stood slowly. Didn't expect you. I saw the video. Everyone saw the video. It's going viral. She gestured outside. Grandpa, what is this? There are 500 bikers out there. 512, last count, Frank said. More coming tomorrow. This is insane. You can't just summon an army because... They're not an army. They're wolves. Frank's voice was patient, like he was explaining something to a child. And they came because I called. Because that's what family does. Family. Claire laughed, and it came out bitter. That's funny. Because I'm your actual family, and you haven't called me in 4 years. The words hung between them like smoke. Frank sat back down heavily. You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with this life. With me. With any of it. You made it clear that your brothers mattered more than your real family. Claire's voice cracked. When Mom was sick, where were you? Out riding. Always out riding. Even at her funeral, you spent more time talking to these guys than to me. Your mother understood. She's dead. She doesn't get to understand anything anymore. Claire stopped, breathing hard. She hadn't meant to yell. Hadn't meant to dredge up 8-year-old wounds. But here they were, bleeding fresh. Frank looked at her with eyes that held decades of regret. You're right. I failed your mother. Failed you. I'm not good at the family thing, Claire. Never was. But these men, he gestured outside. They're the one thing I did right. Built something that lasted. Something that means something. And now they're here to what? Beat people up? This is exactly why I left. No, Frank's voice was firm. They're here to stand. That's all. Tyler Raines and whoever he works for thought they could terrorize an old man into giving up everything. They thought I was alone. They were wrong. Claire looked at her grandfather. Really looked at him. At the split lip, the bruises forming on his arms, the way he winced when he moved. Someone had hurt him. Someone had put their hands on a 90-year-old man. Her grandfather. What did they do to you? She asked quietly. Frank told her. About Tyler, about the threats, about the fake paperwork and the ultimatum. About being shoved into shelves and watching his life's work get destroyed while he lay bleeding on the floor. Claire felt something cold settle in her chest. Rage. Pure and simple. I'm staying, she said. Claire, you don't have to. I'm staying, she repeated. Not for the wolves. Not for whatever this is. For you. Because you're right. You're terrible at family. But you're still my family. And nobody does that to my grandfather. Frank's eyes glistened. He stood and pulled her into a hug. He smelled like motor oil and Old Spice and memory. Outside, 500 engines idled in the darkness. And Claire Mitchell, who'd sworn she'd never return to this world, took her first step back in. Claire woke at dawn on the hood of someone's Harley, a leather jacket draped over her like a blanket. Her back screamed in protest. Sleeping on metal, even expensive chrome-covered metal, was not designed for comfort. Around her, the street was already alive with movement. She sat up, blinking sleep from her eyes. The bikers weren't just standing around anymore. They were organized. Military organized. 3 distinct groups had formed, each clustered around different tables someone had set up overnight. Preacher stood on the shop's front steps, clipboard in hand. An absurd image, this massive bearded man with reading glasses perched on his nose, looking like a violent Santa Claus running logistics. Listen up, his voice carried across the street. We're not waiting for these punks to hit us again. We hit first, we hit smart, and we hit where it hurts, their money. Claire slid off the bike and moved closer, curiosity overriding caution. Team 1, Paper Trail. Preacher pointed to a group of older bikers, several with laptops. Johnny Numbers Rodriguez, your lead. I want every shell company, every fake permit, every forged document they filed traced back to source. We know they're laundering money through construction projects. Find a proof. A lean man with silver hair and thick-framed glasses nodded. He looked more like a professor than a biker. Already on it, preach. Tyler Raines works for a development company called Pinnacle Properties, LLC. Filed in Delaware 3 months ago. Registered agent is Marcus Flynn, formerly Marcus Castellano. He's got 6 prior arrests for racketeering, did time in 04-inch. Good. Dig deeper. Find the money trail. Find where it's coming from and where it's going. Team 2, Ground Operations. Preacher's finger swung to a younger crew. Men in their 50s who looked like they could still throw down. Big Mike, you're running this one. We know Pinnacle has been moving construction equipment through town all month. Trucks, deliveries, materials. Tonight, those trucks start having problems. Engines fail. Tires go flat. GPS systems mysteriously malfunction. Nothing violent. Nothing that can't be explained as mechanical failure. But everything stops moving. Big Mike cracked his knuckles. Consider it done. I know a guy who knows a guy who can make anything break down. Make sure it's clean, Preacher warned. No evidence, no witnesses. We're ghosts. Team 3, Media Relations. Preacher looked at a woman Claire hadn't noticed before. Mid-60s, short gray hair, wearing a leather vest covered in patches. Mama Bear, you still got contacts at the networks. The woman smiled. Honey, I used to be an investigative journalist before I quit to ride full-time. I've got contacts in every newsroom from here to California. What do you need? Everything Team 1 finds, you leak. Carefully. Anonymous tips. Documents showing up in mailboxes. Make it look like concerned citizens exposing corruption. Get the media buzzing. Make it impossible for these guys to operate in the shadows. Claire found herself impressed despite her reservations. These weren't thugs. They were strategists. They'd turned 500 bikers into a precision instrument designed to dismantle an organization without throwing a single punch. Claire, her grandfather emerged from the shop, carrying coffee in a thermos. He looked surprised to see her. You stayed. Apparently, I sleep on motorcycles now. She accepted the coffee gratefully. Grandpa, what is this? This isn't just protection. This is an operation. Frank smiled. You think we became one of the most respected clubs in the country by just being good at bar fights? The Wolves survive because we're smart. Because we know how to fight wars without firing shots. But this is illegal, isn't it? Sabotage, hacking. Proving what's illegal is the hard part, Frank said quietly. We're not stealing. We're not destroying property permanently. We're just creating obstacles. And if some documents happen to surface showing Tyler's boss is a criminal, well, that's just good citizenship. By 10 a.m., Team 1 had results. Johnny Numbers spread papers across a folding table, Claire and Frank leaning in to look. Pinnacle Properties is a front. They're using fake construction projects to move money for a drug operation based in Oklahoma City. Marcus Flynn is the middleman. He buys properties cheap, files for redevelopment, funnels dirty money through construction contracts that never actually get completed, then sells at a loss. The loss is the cleaning fee. How much money are we talking? Claire asked. Millions. Maybe tens of millions over the past 2 years. Preacher appeared behind them. Can you prove it? With these documents? Absolutely. Bank transfers, shell company registrations, construction permits for buildings that don't exist, Johnny grinned. Flynn got sloppy. He's been using the same pattern across 3 states. Get it to Mama Bear. Time to make some noise. By noon, the first news story broke online. A local investigative blog posted an article titled, "Development Company Under Investigation. Links to Money Laundering." The article included scanned documents, transaction records, and a detailed breakdown of Pinnacle Properties' suspicious activity. Within an hour, it had been picked up by the regional news stations. Claire watched it unfold on her phone, story after story appearing. Reddit threads, Twitter investigations, amateur sleuths connecting dots. The internet had taken the bait and run with it. And somewhere across town, Marcus Flynn's phone was probably ringing off the hook. Marcus Flynn hurled his cell phone across his office. It hit the wall and shattered, pieces scattering across expensive carpet. "How?" he screamed at Tyler, who stood in the corner looking pale. "How did they get those documents? Those were encrypted, buried under 6 layers of shell companies." "I don't know, Mr. Flynn. You said he was just some old man. You said this would be easy." Marcus paced like a caged animal. "Now I've got reporters calling, the FBI sniffing around, and 500 bikers camping on his doorstep like it's Woodstock." Tyler swallowed hard. We could what? Burn down the shop? With 500 witnesses and every news camera in the state pointed at us." Marcus slammed his fist on the desk. That old man just declared war. And somehow he's winning. Outside Marcus's office window, 3 delivery trucks that were supposed to arrive that morning sat motionless on the side of Highway 40, their engines mysteriously dead, their drivers furious and confused. The wolves had drawn blood. And they were just getting started. Sheriff Tom Reyes was reviewing incident reports when Marcus Flynn walked into his office without knocking. No appointment. No courtesy call. Just strode past the deputy at the front desk like he owned the place. Expensive shoes clicking on linoleum. Tailored suit probably worth more than Tom's monthly salary. Tom didn't look up from his paperwork. Office hours are 9 to 5. You need to schedule. Cut the bureaucratic bullshit, Sheriff. Marcus dropped a folder on Tom's desk. Papers spilled out, property deeds, zoning documents, legal filings. "We have a situation, and you're going to handle it." Now, Tom finally looked up. Marcus Flynn was 50-something, fit, with the kind of tan that came from country clubs, not construction sites. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. A predator in an expensive suit. "Mr. Flynn, what can I do for you?" "You can do your job." Marcus jabbed a manicured finger at the papers. "There are 500 bikers illegally occupying Main Street. They're blocking traffic, intimidating citizens, and creating a public disturbance. I want them removed. Today." Tom picked up the papers, scanning them slowly. "These documents show you own Frank Miller's property. As of last week, yes. Through proper legal channels. The property had outstanding tax liens. Tax liens that didn't exist until you created them." Tom set the papers down. "I checked with county records this morning. Those liens were filed 8 days ago, backdated 2 years. Judge Hendricks signed off on them. But Judge Hendricks also plays golf with you every Thursday, doesn't he?" Marcus's smile tightened. "I don't like what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." Tom leaned back in his chair. "You want to steal an old man's property using forged documents. That's between you and the courts. But you want me to remove 500 law-abiding citizens from a public street. That's different." "Law-abiding." Marcus laughed. "Sheriff, we both know what motorcycle clubs are. Criminal organizations. Drug runners. Thugs with bikes. The Steel Wolves MC has no criminal record in this jurisdiction. No outstanding warrants. No active investigations." Tom had checked that too, first thing yesterday. "Far as I can tell, they're just citizens exercising their right to peaceful assembly." "Peaceful?" Marcus's voice rose. "My trucks are being sabotaged. My equipment is being vandalized. Someone hacked my company's financial records and leaked them to the press. You filed a police report about the sabotage." "I know. Not yet." "Then I can't help you." Tom picked up his pen, returning to his paperwork. "Come back when you have evidence of a crime." Marcus slammed both hands on the desk. "Listen to me very carefully, Sheriff. I have connections. Real connections. The kind that make or break small-town cops. One phone call, and you'll be directing traffic in a town so small it doesn't even have a stoplight." Tom set down his pen carefully, stood up slowly. He was 4 inches taller than Marcus and 30 pounds heavier, most of it still muscle despite his 47 years. Mr. Flynn, I've been sheriff of this county for 19 years. I've been threatened by drug dealers, gang members, and once by a guy who tried to rob a bank with a starter pistol. Your threats are boring. Tom walked around the desk, backing Marcus toward the door. Now, you want to file a complaint about property damage. I'll take your statement. You want to submit evidence of criminal activity. I'll investigate. But you want me to remove people from public property because they make you nervous? Get out of my office. Marcus's face went red. This isn't over. Yes, it is. For now, Tom opened the door. Have a good day, Mr. Flynn. Marcus left, radiating fury, nearly knocking over Deputy Sarah Chun on his way out. Sarah waited until the front door slammed before entering Tom's office. That's going to cause problems, boss. Yeah, Tom sat down heavily. Probably. He's right about one thing. Those bikers are definitely behind the sabotage. Big Mike Harrison? I saw him near one of those broken-down trucks yesterday. And Mama Bear used to be a journalist. She knows exactly how to leak information. I know. So why are we letting it happen? Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled a photograph from his desk drawer, faded, creased, 20 years old. It showed a younger Tom in a high school cap and gown, standing next to Frank Miller. Frank was holding the diploma, grinning like it was his own. Frank Miller saved my life, Tom said quietly. Not dramatically, not in some movie way, but he saved it. After my dad died, I was angry, lost, heading down a bad road. Frank gave me a job at his shop, taught me that not all men are like my father, that you can be tough without being cruel, that fixing broken things is better than breaking fixed things. Sarah studied the photo. So this is personal. Everything's personal if you dig deep enough. Tom put the photo away. Flynn's using forged documents to steal from an old man. The wolves are exposing him for what he is. A criminal in an expensive suit. They're not killing anyone, not even hurting anyone. They're just pulling back the curtain. And we're just watching it happen. No, we're doing our jobs, Tom met her eyes. Which means enforcing the law equally. If Flynn files a legitimate complaint with evidence, we investigate. If the bikers cross a line, we arrest them. Until then, he shrugged. My hands are tied by procedure. Due process. All that boring bureaucratic stuff Flynn complained about. Sarah smiled slightly. You're playing a dangerous game, boss. I'm playing by the rules. There's a difference. Tom stood, grabbed his hat. Come on. Let's do a welfare check on Main Street. Make sure everything's still peaceful. They drove to Frank's shop in silence. The street was still packed with motorcycles, but the atmosphere had shifted. More families had come out. Townspeople bringing food. Kids getting their pictures taken next to bikes. Someone had even set up a lemonade stand. It looked less like a siege and more like a block party. Tom spotted Frank talking with Preacher and an Asian man he didn't recognize. Claire was there too, laptop open, helping coordinate something. Sheriff. Frank waved him over. Everything okay? Just checking in. Making sure there's no trouble. No trouble here, Preacher said. His eyes told a different story. We're causing plenty of trouble, just not the kind you can arrest us for. Tom nodded slowly. Good. Keep it that way. As he walked back to his cruiser, Sarah spoke quietly. He's going to escalate. Flynn, men like that don't back down. I know, Tom said. And when he does, Tom looked at the 500 bikers, at Frank Miller standing tall despite his 90 years, at Claire finally coming home. Then we'll deal with it, he said. By the book. Whatever happens. But in his heart, Tom Reyes had already chosen his side. He just hoped it wouldn't cost him everything. Tyler Raines sat in his truck across from Miller's auto shop for 2 hours before he finally worked up the nerve to cross the street. The sun was setting, painting Main Street in shades of orange and red. The bikers had settled into evening routines, cooking dinner on portable grills, playing cards under streetlights, maintenance checks on their bikes. It all looked so normal, like they'd been there forever and planned to stay. Tyler's hands shook on the steering wheel. Marcus had called him 3 times today, screaming. The news stories were spreading. Federal investigators were asking questions. The entire operation was unraveling because Tyler had picked the wrong target. Just an old man running a failing shop. That's what Marcus had said. Easy money. Easy property. No complications. Tyler had believed him. Now 500 complications sat between Tyler and his payday, and Marcus was talking about more aggressive strategies that made Tyler's stomach turn. He'd signed up to be an enforcer, not a killer. He needed to understand. Needed to know who this Frank Miller really was and why so many people would drop everything to ride across the country for him. Tyler got out of the truck. Bikers watched him approach. Nobody moved to stop him, but the air grew heavy with attention. Hands drifted toward belts where knives probably rested. Eyes tracked his every step. Frank sat on a folding chair outside the shop, drinking coffee and watching the sunset like he didn't have a care in the world. "Mr. Miller," Tyler said. His voice came out rougher than intended. "Can we talk?" Frank looked up slowly, studied Tyler's face in the fading light. "You armed?" "No." "You here to threaten me again?" "No. I need to understand something." Frank gestured to an empty chair beside him. "Sit." Tyler sat, feeling 500 eyes still on him. Up close, Frank looked even older, skin like leather, hands scarred and gnarled from decades of work. But his eyes were sharp, alert, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with physical strength. "What's your full name, son?" Frank asked. "Tyler Raines." Frank went very still. His coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. "Raines. Danny Raines was your father." Tyler's breath caught. "How did you guess?" "He died when I was 12". "I know." Frank set down his coffee carefully. "I was at his funeral. Back row. You wouldn't remember. You were just a kid, crying so hard you could barely stand. Your mother held you up through the whole service." Tyler's throat tightened. "You knew my dad?" "Knew him." Frank laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Danny Raines saved my life. Twice. Once in Korea, once in a bar fight in El Paso 20 years later. He was a good man. Best friend I ever had outside the Wolves." "That's impossible. My dad never mentioned me." "Yeah, well, we had a falling out." Frank stared at the sunset, but Tyler could tell he was seeing something else. Somewhere else. December 1951. We were dug in outside Hagaruri. Chinese forces everywhere. Temperature so cold your rifle would freeze if you held it wrong. We've been fighting for 3 days straight. No sleep, barely any food. Tyler found himself leaning forward, transfixed. Mortar came in, landed right in our hole. Should have killed us both, would have killed me for sure. But Danny threw himself on top of me, shielded me with his body, took shrapnel in his back and legs. I can still hear him screaming. Frank's voice was distant, haunted. I carried him 2 miles through enemy territory to the medic station. Thought he'd die before we got there. But Danny was tough, stubborn, like his son, apparently. Tyler's eyes burned. His father had never talked about Korea, never talked about the scars Tyler had seen on his back as a kid. "After the war, Danny and I rode together for years," Frank continued. "He was there when we founded the Steel Wolves. Best rider we ever had. Fast, fearless, loyal to his bones. Then he met your mother, and everything changed. Wanted to go straight, raise a family properly, leave the life behind." Frank smiled sadly. "I told him he was making a mistake, that he belonged with the Wolves. We fought about it, said things we couldn't take back. He left the club in '85. Never spoke to me again. He never mentioned any of this," Tyler whispered. "Good. That means he got what he wanted, a clean break. A different life for you." Frank finally looked at Tyler. "Danny was trying to protect you from becoming what he'd been, from becoming what I still am. And what's that? A man who chose brotherhood over family, who built something strong and lasting. But at a cost." Frank gestured to the assembled bikers. "These men would die for me. But I missed my daughter's wedding because I was on a run to Nevada. Missed my wife's last birthday because the club needed me. When my granddaughter needed me most, I was here, in this shop, with my brothers." His voice cracked slightly. "Danny knew better. He chose his family. Chose you." Tyler felt something shift inside his chest. "Then why did you beat up my father's son and take his property?" "I didn't." Frank's voice was firm. "You beat up your father's friend. And Marcus Flynn is trying to steal my property using forged documents so he can launder drug money. You're not the victim here, Tyler. You're the weapon. And I don't think Danny raised his boy to be anyone's weapon." The words hit Tyler like a physical blow. "You want to know why 500 men came when I called?" Frank continued. "It's not because I'm special. It's because 50 years ago, we made a promise to each other. We built something real, something that lasts. Your father understood that, even after he left. He knew what brotherhood meant. My father would hate what I've become, Tyler said quietly. The truth of it settled in his bones. Maybe. Or maybe he'd understand that sons sometimes take wrong turns trying to find their way. Frank stood slowly, joints popping. But you're at a crossroads now, Tyler. You can keep working for a criminal and dishonor your father's memory. Or you can make a different choice. Marcus will kill me if I walk away. Marcus will kill you anyway once you're no longer useful. Men like that always do. Frank extended his hand. But you help me. Help the wolves expose what he's really doing, and we'll make sure you survive. Danny's son deserves that much. Tyler stared at the offered hand. Weathered. Scarred. Honest. He thought of his father. Of the scars on his back he'd never explained. Of the photograph Tyler still kept in his wallet. His dad on a motorcycle, younger, smiling, free. Tyler shook Frank's hand. Tell me what you need, he said. Behind them, 500 bikers relaxed fractionally. The weapon had just changed sides. Claire woke to the sound of power tools at 6 a.m. She stumbled out of the shop's back office. She'd been sleeping on Frank's ancient couch to find the street transformed. Overnight, the wolves had turned Main Street into a fortress. Steel barriers blocked both ends of the road. Cameras mounted on lamp posts fed to laptops set up in a command tent. Bikers in reflective vests directed the few cars that needed through, checking IDs, taking names. Someone had spray-painted a white line across the asphalt with words that made Claire's blood run cold. Wolves territory. Enter at your own risk. What the hell is this? She demanded, finding Preacher directing operations from the shop's front steps. Insurance, Preacher said calmly. Tyler gave us intel last night. Marcus is bringing in outside muscle. Real muscle. Ex-military contractors. We needed to prepare. By declaring martial law. By making it clear that anyone who comes for Frank goes through all of us first. Preacher pointed to a biker adjusting a camera. We're documenting everything. Every face, every vehicle, every word spoken. They want to start something. We'll have evidence. We'll have witnesses. We'll have proof. A motorcycle roared up. Johnny numbers. Laptop bag slung over his shoulder. Preach, we got a problem. Big one. Marcus just filed emergency paperwork with the state. Claims the property is structurally unsound and poses a public danger. He's got an injunction signed by a judge in the Capitol giving him authority to secure the premises immediately for public safety. That's bullshit, Claire said. This building's been here 70 years. Doesn't matter. He's got a judge's signature. Legal authority to remove Frank and demolish the building. Johnny pulled out papers, showing them the official seal. He's coming today, with law enforcement backing if he wants it. Preacher's jaw tightened. Get me Sal. 10 minutes later, Salvador Counselor Martinez arrived. 68 years old, gray suit, briefcase, and a steel wolf's patch on his leather jacket underneath. He'd been a defense attorney for 40 years before retiring to ride full-time. Let me see those papers, Sal read quickly, his expression darkening. This is a sham order. Filed in emergency session without proper notice to the property owner. Judge Morrison signed this. He's been censured twice for accepting bribes. We can challenge it, but it'll take time. How much time? Frank asked. He'd emerged from the shop, coffee in hand, looking exhausted. Days. Maybe a week if we file immediately and get the right judge. Sal folded the papers. But until then, technically, Marcus has legal authority. So he can just take the shop. He can try, but we're going to make it extremely difficult. Sal smiled grimly. I've got 3 other lawyers arriving within the hour. All wolves. All ready to tie this up in so much red tape Marcus will choke on it. We'll file counter-injunctions, challenge the original order, demand environmental reviews, request structural inspections from independent engineers. We'll bury him in procedure. Claire felt a grudging respect. You're weaponizing bureaucracy. Damn right. Same thing they tried to do to us. Sal pulled out his phone. I'm also calling the ACLU, legal aid societies, and every property rights advocacy group in the state. This is government overreach for corporate benefit. They'll eat it up. By 9 a.m., news vans had arrived. 3 different stations, cameras out, reporters doing stand-ups with the barricaded street as backdrop. Claire watched from the shop window as a blonde reporter spoke earnestly into the camera. What's being called the Siege of Ashford, 500 members of the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club have occupied this street for 3 days, protecting 90-year-old World War II veteran Frank Miller from what they claim is an illegal seizure of his property by Pinnacle Properties, a company now under investigation for money laundering. "We're famous," Frank said dryly, standing beside her. "You're a national story," Claire corrected. "This is going to get bigger before it gets smaller. Are you ready for that?" "No. But when have I ever been ready for anything?" Frank smiled slightly. "I'm 90. At this point, I'm just making it up as I go." The sound of engines interrupted them. Different engines. Heavier. Military. 3 black SUVs and a panel truck rolled up to the northern barricade. Men emerged, a dozen of them, all wearing tactical gear, body armor, and weapons holstered on their hips. Not police. Not military. Something in between. Private security. Mercenaries. The lead man approached the barricade where Big Mike stood guard. Claire couldn't hear the conversation, but body language told the story. Demands, refusals, escalating tension. Preacher's radio crackled. "Boss, we got incoming. Armed contractors claiming they have legal authority to enter and secure the property." "Hold the line," Preacher responded. "Nobody gets through without proper credentials verified by our legal team." The lead mercenary pulled out papers, waving them. Big Mike didn't budge. More bikers materialized from side streets. 20, 30, 50. They formed a wall of leather and chrome between the mercenaries and the shop. Silent. Waiting. The news cameras swiveled, capturing everything. "This is it," Claire whispered. "The moment it goes from protest to confrontation." Frank's hand found hers. Squeezed. Or the moment Marcus realizes he can't win. Behind the mercenaries, townspeople had begun to gather. Claire recognized faces. Mrs. Chun from the grocery store, Pastor Williams from the church, the Ortega family who ran the diner. They stood on sidewalks, watching. Silent support. Then Mrs. Chun did something unexpected. She walked past the mercenaries, straight to the barricade, carrying a tray of sandwiches. "For the wolves," she said loudly. "You boys must be hungry." Big Mike accepted the tray with a grin. "Thank you, ma'am." More townspeople approached. Mr. Ortega brought coffee. Pastor Williams brought blankets. The high school kids brought cases of water. One by one, the community of Ashford declared their allegiance, not through words, but through action. The lead mercenary's radio crackled. He listened, then spoke curtly to his team. "Fall back. We're regrouping." The SUVs retreated. The wolves didn't celebrate. They simply held their ground. Claire looked at her grandfather, at the bikers surrounding them, at the townspeople offering support. "He's going to come back harder, isn't he?" "Yes," Frank said. "But now we're ready." Sal appeared beside them, phone pressed to his ear. "Good news. Federal prosecutors are officially investigating Pinnacle Properties. And CNN wants an interview with you, Frank." Frank groaned. "I hate interviews." "Then let me do it," Claire heard herself say. Everyone turned to look at her. "I'm a marketing manager. I know how to tell stories. Let me tell yours." Frank studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, Claire Bear. Tell them about the wolves." And for the first time in 8 years, Claire smiled at the old nickname. She had a story to tell. The world needed to hear it. The interview went viral within 2 hours. Claire sat in the shop's office, refreshing her phone, watching the view count climb. 200,000. 500,000. 1,000,000. The video had been edited down to a tight 3-minute segment. Claire explaining the forged documents, Tyler's assault on her 90-year-old grandfather, Marcus Flynn's money laundering operation, and 500 veterans who'd answered a call to protect one of their own. She'd kept it simple, emotional but factual, the perfect soundbite for the algorithm. "You're good at this," a voice said behind her. Claire turned. A woman in her early 30s stood in the doorway, Latino, athletic build, wearing a leather vest with fresh patches. The kind of patches that marked someone new to the club. "Thanks. I'm Claire. I know. Everyone knows who you are." The woman extended her hand. "Rosa Martinez, Counselor Sal's daughter. I've been riding with the wolves for 2 years, but this is my first real action. Your first siege of a small town." Rosa laughed. "Something like that. Listen, there are about 30 of us, younger generation, late 20s to 40s. We've been trying to figure out how to help beyond just standing around looking intimidating. Your interview gave us an idea. She pulled out a tablet, showing a hastily designed spreadsheet. We need organization, real structure. And you ran marketing campaigns, right? You know logistics? Claire looked at the spreadsheet. It was a mess, good intentions, but no coherent system. What are you trying to do? Everything. Food distribution, medical supplies, communications with other chapters, media monitoring, legal document filing, Rosa sighed. But nobody's coordinating it. We're all just doing stuff. Duplicate efforts, missed opportunities. It's chaos. Claire felt something click in her mind. This was familiar territory. Different context, same problem. You need a command structure. Operations management. Exactly. But the old guard, no offense to your grandfather, they're brilliant at strategy, but terrible at implementation details. They think in broad strokes. We need someone who thinks in spreadsheets. Show me what you've got. Rosa led her outside to where the younger wolves had congregated near the south barricade. 32 bikers by Claire's count, ranging from late 20s to mid-40s. Some had served in Iraq or Afghanistan. Others were teachers, nurses, IT workers. One was apparently an accountant. They'd all left their lives behind to answer Iron Hand's call. And they were sitting idle, drinking coffee, waiting for orders that weren't coming. All right, Claire said, pulling out her laptop. Let's get organized. Who's got medical training? 3 hands went up, 2 former Army medics and an ER nurse named Patricia. Your team medical. I want a full inventory of first aid supplies, a triage station set up in case things go bad, and a rotation schedule, so someone with training is always on duty. Claire pointed to an empty storefront. Use that building. Get it stocked and ready within 2 hours. Patricia nodded, already moving. Who's got tech skills? 5 hands. Claire assigned them to communications, monitoring news, social media, police scanners. Set up encrypted channels for coordination between different wolf chapters. Track Marcus Flynn's movements and activities. Supply chain. The accountant volunteered, along with 2 former logistics specialists from the Marines. Claire put them in charge of food, water, fuel, and equipment distribution. Create a system. No more random deliveries. Scheduled, organized, efficient. What about me? Rosa asked. You're my second in command. We're building an operations center. Claire pointed back to the shop. Clear out that side room. I want maps, communication equipment, duty rosters, everything centralized. This stops being a campout and starts being an operation. Yes, ma'am, Rosa grinned. You know, Iron Hand's granddaughter giving orders feels right somehow. Claire felt a flutter of pride mixed with anxiety. I'm not. I'm just organizing things. That's what generals do, Rosa said. They organize chaos into victory. Within 4 hours, the transformation was remarkable. The medical station had been set up with proper supplies, organized by type and urgency. The communications team had established a real-time monitoring system, tracking news coverage and potential threats. Supply distribution had been streamlined. No more random coolers and grocery bags, but a proper inventory system with scheduled deliveries and waste management. Claire stood in the new operations center, formerly a storage room, now equipped with folding tables, multiple laptops, charging stations, and a large map of the town with positions marked. Frank appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised. What happened here? Efficiency, Claire said. The younger wolves needed direction. I gave them structure. You militarized my auto shop. I organized your defense. There's a difference, Claire pointed to the map. We've got medical capacity for up to 50 injuries now. Communications monitoring 20 different channels. Supply lines that can sustain 500 people for 2 weeks. And she pulled up a document on her laptop, a media strategy that's getting us 15,000 new social media followers per hour. Frank stared at the screens, the maps, the organized chaos his granddaughter had created in half a day. You did this. They did it. I just gave them assignments that matched their skills. Claire felt self-conscious suddenly. Is it okay? I didn't ask permission. Claire, Frank's voice was thick. This is exactly what we needed. What I couldn't give them, he looked at her with something like wonder. You're a natural leader. I'm a marketing manager who makes PowerPoints. No. You're a miller, Frank squeezed her shoulder. You've got your mother's brains, and apparently my stubborn refusal to back down. That's a dangerous combination. Preacher entered, took one look around, and whistled. Well, damn. Girl, you just put half my veterans to shame. This is better organized than some military operations I've seen. It's basic project management, Claire said, but she couldn't help smiling. It's exactly what we needed. Preacher studied the map. With this setup, we can coordinate response teams, track threats in real time, and maintain sustained operations indefinitely. He looked at Frank. Your granddaughter just turned 500 bikers into an actual tactical unit. Rosa appeared with a tablet. Claire, we're getting reports of increased activity at Pinnacle Properties' main office. Multiple vehicles arriving. Looks like they're planning something. Put it on the monitor. Get me visual if possible. Claire was already moving to the computer. Alert teams 1 and 2. I want eyes on every exit. Frank watched his granddaughter work, confident, decisive, in her element. She'd come back reluctantly, dragged by duty and old wounds. But somewhere in the past 3 days, she'd found something. Purpose, belonging, legacy. She was no longer just his estranged granddaughter. She was a wolf. And the pack had found its general. 3 a.m. was the quietest hour. Most of the wolves were sleeping, in tents, in vehicles, on bedrolls spread across sidewalks. Only the patrol teams remained awake, rotating in 2-hour shifts that Claire had organized on a color-coded spreadsheet. Blue team covered the north approach. Red team the south. Green team circled the perimeter every 15 minutes. Yellow team, the most experienced, watched the back alley behind the shop where darkness pooled thick between buildings. Danny, Whisper, Chun led yellow team. At 73, he moved with the quiet economy of a man who'd spent 2 tours in Vietnam learning that silence kept you alive. He'd taught Claire to play poker when she was 7. Tonight, he was teaching 3 younger wolves how to watch shadows. You don't look at things directly, he murmured, crouched behind a dumpster. You look past them. Let your peripheral vision do the work. Movement registers faster there. The young wolf beside him, a kid named Jake, maybe 30, nodded. How long you been doing this? Longer than you've been alive, Whisper held up a hand. Quiet. They all heard it. The subtle scrape of shoes on asphalt. Too careful. Too deliberate. Someone trying very hard to be silent, which made them loud to anyone who knew what to listen for. Whisper keyed his radio, barely breathing the words. Yellow team. 3 contacts, Eastern Alley approach. Carrying packages. Moving to intercept. In the operations center, Claire jerked awake at her desk. She'd fallen asleep reviewing supply orders. Rosa shook her shoulder. We've got movement. Back alley. Claire was on her feet instantly, adrenaline spiking. Wake everyone. Quietly. No engines, no lights. I want bodies surrounding that alley in 60 seconds. Rosa moved, efficient and silent. Within a minute, 50 wolves were mobilizing like ghosts, converging on the back of the shop from 4 different directions. In the alley, 3 men crept toward the shop's rear entrance. They wore dark clothes, faces covered with bandanas. One carried a duffel bag that clinked softly. Another held what looked like a gas can. The third kept checking his phone, the screen's glow illuminating nervous eyes. Whisper and his team let them get close. Very close. Right up to the shop's back door where the first man knelt, pulling accelerant cans from the duffel bag. Insurance fire, one whispered. Flynn says make it look accidental. Old building, old wiring, nobody questions it. Just hurry up, another hissed. I want to be gone before. Before what? Whisper's voice cut through the darkness. Floodlights exploded on. Someone had rigged portable construction lights to a battery pack. The alley went from pitch black to stadium bright in an instant. The 3 arsonists froze, blinded, trapped in the light like animals. Around them, wolves materialized from every shadow, in front, behind, sides. 30 bikers forming an inescapable circle. Drop the bags, Whisper said calmly. Hands where we can see them. The phone guy bolted. Stupid move. He made it 3 steps before Big Mike emerged from behind a dumpster and clotheslined him with an arm like a steel beam. The man went down hard, gasping. The other 2 tried to fight. One swung a crowbar at the nearest wolf. Bad choice. The wolf, a former Marine named Marcus, blocked, disarmed, and put the man on the ground with a joint lock that made him scream. The whole sequence took maybe 3 seconds. The third arsonist pulled a knife. Worst choice. Jake, The young wolf didn't even hesitate. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan. One knife-wielding idiot didn't even register as a threat. He sidestepped, grabbed the knife hand, twisted, and suddenly the arsonist was face down on the asphalt with his own knife skittering away into darkness. No gunshots, no deaths, just fast, brutal, efficient takedowns. The fight was over in less than 10 seconds. "Check the bags," Whisper ordered. They found 4 gallons of accelerant, road flares, and detailed floor plans of the shop marked with optimal ignition points. Professional arson kit. This wasn't random vandalism. This was planned destruction. Claire arrived with Sheriff Tom, who'd been sleeping in his cruiser on the street. Maintaining his official presence, he took one look at the scene and sighed. "Someone want to tell me what happened here?" "Caught 3 men attempting to commit arson, Sheriff," Whisper said. "They were literally about to light it up when we intervened. Everything's on camera." He pointed to small cameras the wolves had mounted. "Got the whole approach recorded." Tom looked at the terrified men zip-tied on the ground, at the accelerant cans, at the floor plans. Jesus Christ. Flynn really went there. "Talk to them," Claire said. "They're scared. They'll tell you everything." Tom crouched beside the phone guy, who was crying. "What's your name, son?" "Derek. Derek Paulson. Please, I didn't want to do this." Flynn said it was just property damage. Nobody would get hurt. Just burn the building. "Marcus Flynn hired you directly?" "Yes. Him and some guy named Castellano." "Wait," Flynn said that was his real name. "Marcus Castellano. He's the boss. Runs the whole operation out of Oklahoma City." Derek was babbling now. Terror overriding loyalty. The money laundering, the property seizures, all of it. This shop was supposed to be the next hub. Burn it down, claim insurance, rebuild with drug money. "I have texts. I have everything. I'll testify. I'll tell you whatever you want. Just please don't let them." He looked at the wolves surrounding him. "They're not going to hurt you," Tom said. "You're under arrest, which means you're protected. Now, tell me everything." Derek sang like a canary. "Names, locations, bank accounts, properties." The entire structure of Flynn's operation spilled out in a terrified confession, while Tom's deputy recorded every word. The other 2 arsonists, seeing Derek cooperate, followed suit. Self-preservation overrode loyalty fast when facing 30 to life for arson and attempted murder. Within an hour, Tom had enough evidence to fill 3 notebooks. "This is it," he told Frank and Claire. "This is everything I need to bring in the state police, maybe the FBI. Financial crimes, arson conspiracy, racketeering. Flynn is done. How long until you can move on him?" Frank asked. "I'm making calls right now. We'll have state investigators here by morning. Warrants by afternoon." Tom looked at the 3 sobbing arsonists. "They just handed us a gift. Flynn's going to run," Claire said. "The moment he realizes his men didn't come back." "Let him try," Tom smiled grimly. "I've already got an APB ready. Every cop in 3 states will be looking for him. He's got nowhere to go." Preacher appeared with Tyler in tow. Tyler looked at the captured arsonists with something like relief. "I knew he'd try something like this," Tyler said quietly. "He talked about forcing the issue. I thought he meant legal pressure, not actual arson." "You did the right thing, coming to us," Tom said. "Your testimony, combined with theirs, puts Flynn away for decades." Tyler looked at Frank. "My dad really would hate what I became, wouldn't he?" "No," Frank said gently. "He'd be proud you chose to change. That's harder than never going wrong in the first place." As dawn broke over Ashford, emergency vehicles arrived, state police, fire marshal, criminal investigators. The siege was transforming into something else, something official. Marcus Flynn's empire was burning down, and the wolves had struck the match. Marcus Flynn's phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. He ignored the first 3 calls, probably Derek panicking about something minor. The kid was reliable but nervous. But when the 4th call came from a different number, then a 5th, Marcus answered. "What? Boss?" Derek's not answering. It was Paulson's crew chief. "Neither are Mike or Tony. They were supposed to check in 2 hours ago." Marcus sat up in his hotel room, suddenly awake. "What do you mean not answering?" "I mean their phones are off. No response to texts. It's like they vanished." Marcus's blood went cold. "Send someone to check the shop. Now." "Already did. Streets crawling with cops. State police, Fire marshal, some guys in FBI windbreakers. Whatever happened, it went bad. Marcus ended the call and immediately dialed his lawyer. Voicemail. He tried his accountant. Same. His real estate broker. Nothing. They were abandoning him. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. He threw on clothes, mind racing. The arson had failed, which meant evidence. Witnesses. Testimony. He needed to move fast, liquidate assets, destroy documents, disappear before the walls closed in. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Come to Miller's shop. Alone. You want a way out? This is it. T.R. Tyler Raines. Marcus stared at the message. It could be a trap. Probably was a trap. But Tyler had been his inside man for 3 months. If anyone knew how to navigate this mess, it was him. Or maybe Tyler was flipping. That was the other possibility. Either way, Marcus needed information. Needed to know what the cops had, what they knew, what they could prove. He texted back, 1 hour. Tyler sat in Frank's office, surrounded by documents he'd spent all night compiling. Bank statements, construction permits, transfer receipts, text message screenshots. 3 years of evidence documenting every illegal transaction Marcus Flynn had made. You sure about this? Frank asked quietly. Tyler's hands shook slightly as he organized the papers. My dad didn't risk his life in Korea so his son could help criminals destroy good people. I'm done being Marcus's weapon. Sheriff Tom entered with 2 state investigators, a woman named Agent Carson and a man named Agent Rodriguez, both wearing serious expressions and FBI credentials. Mr. Raines, Agent Carson said. Sheriff Reyes says you have information about Marcus Flynn's operation. I have everything. Tyler pushed a thumb drive across the desk. 3 years of financial records. Every shell company, every fake construction project, every property he's used to launder money. Names of his suppliers, distributors, the Oklahoma City cartel he works for. Bank accounts in the Caymans. Payoff lists for judges and city officials. He pulled out a ledger. This is his personal record, the one he thought nobody else knew about. Documents every bribe, every dirty transaction. Agent Rodriguez whistled softly. How'd you get this? I was his operations manager. I processed everything. Filed permits, managed contractors, handled cash transfers. I saw it all. Tyler met their eyes. And I can testify to all of it. That makes you an accomplice, Agent Carson said carefully. I know. I'll take whatever deal you offer. But I can give you Marcus Flynn, 6 corrupt judges, a dozen city officials, and a direct line to a drug operation moving $50 million a year through fake construction projects. Tyler's voice was steady. That's worth something, isn't it? The agents exchanged glances. It's worth a lot, Agent Carson said. We'll need to verify everything. But if this holds up, she looked at the thumb drive like it was the Holy Grail. We can dismantle the entire network. There's more, Tyler said. He pulled out his phone, showing text messages. Marcus is panicking. I told him to meet me here in. He checked his watch. 23 minutes. He thinks I'm helping him escape. Actually, I'm delivering him to you. Tom leaned back in his chair. That's risky. He could bring backup. Could get violent. He won't. He's desperate and stupid right now. He thinks he can still control this. Tyler looked at Frank. And I want him to see me. Want him to know that Danny Raines' son isn't afraid of him anymore. Claire appeared in the doorway. We've got movement. 3 SUVs approaching from the east. Looks like Marcus's security team. So much for coming alone, Tom muttered. Preacher joined them, assessing the situation. We've got 200 wolves in position. Another 100 scattered within 2 blocks. They make a move, we respond. No violence, Agent Carson said firmly. This is a law enforcement operation now. We need Flynn arrested, not martyred. Then arrest him the second he admits anything, Preacher said. Wire Tyler. Get him talking. 10 minutes later, Tyler stood on the street wearing a wire taped to his chest, every nerve on fire. The 3 SUVs had parked at the barricade. Marcus emerged from the middle vehicle, flanked by 4 private security contractors, the same ones from yesterday, looking tense and heavily armed. Tyler, Marcus called out. What the hell is going on? Tyler walked forward slowly, stopping 20 feet away. Behind him, wolves formed a wall. Behind Marcus, his mercenaries did the same. 2 armies facing off over asphalt. The arson failed, Tyler said. Derek, Mike, and Tony got caught. They're talking to police right now, telling them everything. Marcus's face went pale. Those idiots. I told them to be careful. You told them to burn down a building with 500 witnesses watching. Tyler interrupted. What did you think would happen? We can fix this. Pay off the right people. Make the charges disappear. There's nothing to fix, Marcus. It's over. The FBI is investigating. They know about the shell companies, the laundering operation, the Oklahoma City connection. They know everything. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. But the wire picked up every word. Then we run. I've got accounts in the Caymans. 2 million liquid. We take it, split it, disappear to somewhere without extradition. I'm not running with you. What? I said I'm not running. Tyler's voice grew stronger. My father fought for this country. Saved lives. Stood for something. And I've spent 3 years helping a criminal steal from people like Frank Miller. I'm done. Marcus's expression twisted. You're wearing a wire, aren't you? You son of a FBI. Hands where we can see them. Agent Carson emerged from the shop with 6 federal agents, weapons drawn. Marcus's security team started to reach for their guns. Bad idea. Instantly, 200 wolves stepped forward in perfect unison, a wall of leather and muscle. The mercenaries were outnumbered 40-1 and suddenly realized it. Hands moved away from weapons. Slowly. Marcus Castellano, Agent Rodriguez called out, using Flynn's real name. You're under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit arson, bribery of public officials, and about 30 other charges we'll figure out later. You have the right to remain silent. Marcus lunged at Tyler. Preacher caught him by the collar and slammed him against the nearest SUV hard enough to dent the door. Don't, Preacher growled. You're done. Marcus was cuffed. His security team was disarmed and detained for questioning. The SUVs were searched, revealing more documents, laptops, and, stupidly, 2 duffel bags full of cash Marcus had apparently been planning to use to flee the country. As Marcus was loaded into a federal vehicle, he locked eyes with Tyler. You're dead. You understand that? My people will find you. Your family. Everyone you. Your people are already flipping, Agent Carson said cheerfully. 6 of your employees called us this morning offering to testify. Your accountant. Your lawyer. Your real estate broker. Even Judge Hendricks lawyered up and started talking. You're not scary anymore, Mr. Castellano. You're just pathetic. The vehicle pulled away, sirens wailing. Tyler stood in the street, shaking. Frank walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. Your dad would be proud, Frank said quietly. Tyler's eyes filled. You think so? I know so. You did the hardest thing. You chose right over easy. That's what heroes do. Claire appeared with coffee. You're going to need witness protection. Federal marshals. New identity. I know. Tyler accepted the coffee. But I've got time before that starts. Few days at least. He looked at the assembled wolves. Can I stay? Just until this is finished. You're Danny's son, Preacher said. You're always welcome with the wolves. Tyler nodded, not trusting his voice. Around them, Ashford slowly woke to a new reality. Marcus Flynn was gone. His empire dismantled. His corruption exposed. And one scared kid who'd made bad choices had found the courage to make one good one. Sometimes, that's all it takes. By noon, Main Street looked like a federal law enforcement convention. FBI vehicles, state police cruisers, unmarked sedans that screamed serious government business. Agents in windbreakers moved through the crowd of wolves with warrants, clipboards, and cautious respect. The siege was officially over. Agent Carson stood with Sheriff Tom, reviewing paperwork on the hood of her sedan. We've got warrants for 17 people, city officials, judges, contractors. Flynn's entire network. We're executing raids across 3 states simultaneously. What about the property? Frank asked, standing beside them with Claire and Preacher. The injunction is voided. The tax liens are dismissed. Judge Morrison, who signed the original order, is being investigated for corruption. Carson looked at Frank with genuine respect. Mr. Miller, your property rights are fully restored. The building is legally yours, and any future attempts to seize it will be met with federal obstruction charges. Frank exhaled slowly, a tension he'd been carrying for days finally releasing. It's really over. It's really over, Carson smiled. You won. Around them, The remaining mercenaries who'd worked for Flynn were being processed. Most had already contacted lawyers. Without Flynn's money, they were just contractors who'd made bad employment choices. None wanted to face federal weapons charges or obstruction counts. They talked, cooperated, provided evidence. The few who'd considered fighting saw 500 bikers and decided discretion was the better part of survival. By 2 p.m., the barricades started coming down. Wolves dismantled the barriers they'd erected, power tools humming as they worked. The spray-painted territorial markings were scrubbed away. Camping equipment was packed. The street that had been a fortress for 4 days slowly transformed back into just a street. But something fundamental had changed. Townspeople lined the sidewalks, watching the wolves work. They brought more food, casseroles, pies, sandwiches. Mrs. Chen arrived with her entire extended family, carrying enough Chinese food to feed an army. For the wolves, she announced. You saved Frank. You saved all of us from those criminals. Pastor Williams approached with the church congregation behind him. We'd like to offer the church hall for your use tonight. Beds, showers, proper facilities. It's the least we can do. The Ortega family brought their food truck and parked it on the corner, offering free meals. No arguments, Mr. Ortega said firmly. You stood up when nobody else would. This is family. Preacher watched the townspeople embrace the wolves with something like wonder. Frank, you see this? I see it. Frank's voice was thick. We came to defend one shop, but they're treating us like we saved the whole town. You did, Sheriff Tom said. Flynn wasn't stopping with your property. He had plans for 6 other buildings. Was going to systematically take over downtown, turn it into a money laundering hub. You exposed him before he could spread. Tom clapped Frank on the shoulder. You saved Ashford. Claire stood in the operations center, now being dismantled, equipment packed away, reviewing the final statistics on her laptop. Rosa helped her organize files. We had 512 bikers at peak attendance, Claire read. Coordinated operations across 4 days without a single arrest, injury, or violent incident. Successfully exposed a multi-state criminal operation, recovered stolen property rights, and protected a 90-year-old veteran from a legal seizure. She looked at Rosa. We did good, didn't we? We did great, Rosa smiled. And you let us. A week ago, you wanted nothing to do with this world. Now look at you. Claire saved the final report, closed her laptop. I forgot what it felt like. Being part of something bigger than myself. Something that matters. That's what the wolves are, Rosa said. That's what we've always been. By evening, the last federal vehicle pulled away. Main Street was clear. The wolves remained, but the atmosphere had shifted from siege to celebration. Someone set up speakers. Music played, classic rock, Creedence Clearwater Revival, the kind of music that belonged to Frank's generation but transcended time. Bikers danced with townspeople. Kids sat on motorcycles for pictures. Stories were shared over beer and coffee. War stories, riding stories, stories of brotherhood forged over decades and miles. Tyler sat with a group of younger wolves, sharing his story. How Frank had known his father. How one conversation had changed everything. How he'd found the courage to choose right over easy. You're one of us now, Big Mike said, clapping Tyler on the back hard enough to hurt. Danny's son is always welcome with the wolves. Tyler's eyes burned. I don't deserve that. Nobody deserves family, Whisper said quietly. You earn it by showing up. You showed up when it mattered. That's enough. Frank found Claire sitting on his workbench, watching the street party through the shop window. He sat beside her, joints protesting. Your mother would be proud, he said. You think? I know. She always said I built something good with the wolves, even when she hated that it took me away from her. She'd see what you did, how you led them, organized them, made them better. Frank took Claire's hand. You're a better wolf than I ever was. I'm not a wolf, Grandpa. Aren't you? Frank gestured outside. You fought for family, protected the pack, led with strength and wisdom. That's what wolves do. Claire watched Rosa laughing with Preacher, watched Tyler finding acceptance, watched 500 people who'd been strangers days ago now bound together by shared purpose. Maybe, she admitted. Maybe I am. Sal approached with official documents. Frank, these are yours. Property deed, clear title, legal protection orders. Everything signed, sealed, and bulletproof. You're safe. Frank took the papers, but his hands shook slightly. The weight of 90 years pressed down. The battles fought, the brothers lost. The life lived at the edge of society's rules, but within its heart. "I'm tired, Sal," he said quietly. "So damn tired." "I know." Old friend Sal squeezed his shoulder. "But you won. You stood. You survived. That's the victory." Preacher stepped up onto a makeshift stage, really just a flatbed truck someone had parked in the street. His voice boomed over the music. "Brothers, sisters, friends." The crowd quieted. "We came to Ashford 4 days ago because Iron Hand called. Because that's what wolves do. We answer the call. We stand with our own. We fight for what's right." He raised his beer. "Marcus Flynn tried to destroy our brother. Instead, we destroyed him. Justice won. Family won. The wolves won." The crowd erupted. Cheers, whistles, engines revving in celebration. "Tomorrow, we ride." Preacher continued. "One last ride together, as a pack, before we scatter back to our lives. But tonight? Tonight we celebrate. To Iron Hand. To the wolves. To family. To Iron Hand." 500 voices shouted as one. Frank stood, tears streaming down his weathered face, and raised his own beer to the sky. The siege was broken. The enemy defeated. The pack victorious. Tomorrow they would ride. Tonight, they celebrated coming home. Dawn broke cold and clear on the 5th day. Frank Miller stood in his shop, coffee in hand, watching the street come alive one final time. 500 motorcycles lined Main Street in perfect formation, chrome gleaming, engines silent, riders preparing for departure. The siege was over. Life was calling them home. Jobs, families, responsibilities left behind to answer an old man's call. Today, they would scatter back across America like leaves on the wind. But first, one last ride. Claire found him staring at a photograph on his desk. Young Frank in military uniform, standing beside a man she now recognized as Tyler's father, Danny Rains. Both smiling, impossibly young, whole wars ahead of them. "You okay, Grandpa?" Frank set down the photo carefully. "Just remembering. Danny and I were 23 in that picture. Thought we'd live forever. Thought nothing could touch us." He smiled sadly. "Now he's gone. I'm 90, and his son just saved my life by risking his own." "Circles," Claire said softly. "Life comes in circles." "Yeah," Frank turned to her. "I'm glad you came home, Claire Bear. Even if it took a war to bring you." "Me too." Claire hugged him, breathing in motor oil and Old Spice and memory. "I'm sorry I stayed away so long. Sorry I blamed you for Mom. You had every right." "No, I didn't." Claire pulled back, looking him in the eye. "Mom loved you. Loved the wolves. She knew who you were when she married you. And I think she'd be proud of what we did here. Proud that when it mattered, you called your family and they came." Frank's eyes glistened. All of them came. Outside, Preacher's voice boomed. "Wolves, mount up. Time to ride." Engines roared to life. A thunder that rattled windows and stirred hearts. 500 motorcycles, 500 brothers and sisters, united one last time. Frank walked outside. The morning sun painted everything gold. His 1967 Harley-Davidson sat waiting. The one he'd been restoring for Claire, now finished. Chrome perfect, engine purring, a second helmet hanging from the handlebars. "You finished it," Claire whispered. "Finished it 3 days ago." Between the siege and the strategy meetings, Frank handed her the helmet. "It's yours. Always was. I just needed you home to give it to you." Claire's hands shook as she took the helmet. Red, with white flames, exactly the design she'd drawn in crayon when she was 8 years old, dreaming of riding with Grandpa someday. "You remembered." "I remember everything that matters." Frank swung onto his bike with a gracefulness that defied his 90 years. "You riding with me?" Claire put on the helmet, climbed behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist. "Always." Preacher pulled his bike alongside. "Where to?" Iron Hand. Frank looked at the assembled wolves, old friends, new allies. Tyler standing with Big Mike wearing a borrowed leather vest. Rosa and the younger generation ready to carry the legacy forward. "Loop through town," Frank said. "Let Ashford see us one last time. Then out to Highway 40, up through the canyon, and back. One clean ride. Together." "Heard." Preacher raised his fist. "Wolves, follow Iron Hand. We ride as one." The pack moved. 500 motorcycles rolled down Main Street in perfect formation, 2 by 2, engines roaring in harmony, a mechanical symphony of chrome and power and brotherhood. Townspeople lined the sidewalks, waving. Kids cheered. Mrs. Chin stood on her store's steps, tears streaming, hands pressed together in gratitude. Pastor Williams raised a hand in blessing. The Ortega family held up a banner. Thank you, Wolves. Sheriff Tom Reyes stood beside his cruiser at the edge of town, hand raised in salute as the pack passed. His radio crackled with reports from neighboring counties, hundreds of motorcycles entering their jurisdiction. Tom keyed the radio. Let them through, he said simply. They're heroes. They're going home. The pack hit Highway 40 and opened up. Frank felt Claire's arms tighten around him as they accelerated, the wind tearing at their clothes. The engines roared, drowning thought. This was pure sensation, speed and freedom, and the road unspooling ahead like possibility itself. They rode through the canyon, where red rocks towered like cathedrals. They rode past the reservoir, where morning mist rose like ghosts. They rode through the desert where the horizon stretched forever, and the sky was so blue it hurt to look at. And Frank felt young again. Felt like that 23-year-old soldier with everything ahead of him. Felt his wife on the back of the bike instead of his granddaughter. Felt Danny riding beside him. Felt all the lost brothers surrounding him like they'd never left. The pack circled back to Ashford as the sun climbed high. They rolled onto Main Street one final time and stopped outside Miller's auto shop. Engines cut off in sequence, a dying thunder that faded to silence. Frank dismounted slowly. Claire helped him, steadying his trembling legs. Preacher approached, embracing him. Until next time, brother. Until next time, Frank gripped his shoulder. Take care of them. Always. Preacher looked at Claire. And you take care of him. I will. One by one, the wolves said goodbye. Big Mike. Whisper. Mama Bear. Johnny Numbers. Rosa. Tyler, who hugged Frank like he was saying goodbye to the father he'd lost. Thank you, Tyler whispered, for showing me who my dad really was. He's still here, Frank said. In you. In every good choice you make going forward. Tyler nodded, unable to speak, and walked to his bike. The pack departed in groups, chapters heading north, south, east, west. The thunder gradually faded, engines disappearing into distance until only silence remained. Claire and Frank stood alone on Main Street. The shop was his again. The town was safe. Marcus Flynn was in federal custody, facing life imprisonment. The wolves had scattered, but the brotherhood remained, unbroken, eternal, waiting for the next call that might never come. What now? Claire asked. Frank looked at his shop, at the town he'd protected, at the granddaughter who'd found her way home. Now I fix motorcycles, drink coffee, maybe teach my granddaughter the business, if she's interested. I might be. Claire smiled. I might be very interested. Good. Frank put his arm around her shoulders. Because every pack needs a new leader eventually. And you, Claire Bear, are going to make one hell of an alpha. They walked into the shop together, 2 generations bound by blood and chrome, by sacrifice and stubbornness, by a legacy that wasn't built on violence, but on the simple truth that family answers the call. Always. The door closed behind them. On the wall, the Steel Wolves patch hung beside Frank's old uniform. Symbols of a life lived at the edge, but always, always standing for something that mattered. Brotherhood, honor, family. The howl of 500 engines had faded. But the legend of Iron Hand and the day the wolves came home would echo forever.